Hi, this is Jeremy for CRMDevs.com. In this video, we're going to write a plugin. Inside this plugin, we're going to create a note when an account has been created, and we're going to attach a text file to that note with some basic text in there. So we're going to execute this in the post-event of the event execution pipeline. So let's just create an account initially just to see what we're trying to achieve. So I'm just going to call this account 1 and click Save. I'm going to go ahead and view this record. So what I want to do now is click on the Notes tab, and there's nothing there. So what I want to do is, when I create this account, I'm going to attach a text file to a note inside there. So let's fire up Visual Studio 2015, and we're going to go ahead and create a new project, like so. It's going to be 452 framework, which is the new minimum supported by Microsoft. Class library, I'm just going to call this plugins. Okay, so now that that has loaded, I am going to first add some references. So we're going to need to add a reference to Microsoft.xrm.sdk, which is located in the bin folder of the SDK that we've downloaded earlier. We also need to add a reference to system.runtime.serialization, which is part of the .NET framework. Okay, so after we've done that, we need to sign our project. So let's go to the Properties and click Signing tab. Sign the assembly. I'm going to say New Key. Give my key a name of plugins, and I'm going to hit OK. So now that we've signed our project, we can, I'm not going to worry about changing the name. I'm just going to bring in the iPlugin interface, like so. Let's go ahead and implement that interface. Get rid of the boilerplate code there. So first up, we're going to obtain an instance of the plugin execution context service, like so. Once we have that context, we're going to check the context input parameters, parameter collection, and we're going to see if it contains a target. And if it does, we want to check that that target is actually an entity, because it can be an entity reference. So it's important that we check that, otherwise we may get an exception when we run our plugin later on. If it is, I'm going to create a new entity called a note, and the entity's name is actually an annotation. I'm going to set the subject to example note with text file attached, like so. Next, I'm going to set the file name property attribute of the note. I'm going to call that example note attachment.txt, like so. I then will set the document body attribute of the note to converting to base 64 string using the Unicode encoding. I'm going to say get bytes, and I'm just going to enter text here. So I'm just going to say this is some sample text that is in this file, like so. Okay, so it's important to understand that attachments usually need to be converted to base 64 string. So that goes for images or anything else. Okay, so now I need to also set the MIME type to text plain, and the object ID, which is going to be our entity reference. So this is going to be the entity that this node is related to. So it's going to be related to the account we're just creating, so that's its logical name, account. And then I'm going to capture the output parameter ID, which is in the context output parameters parameter collection. So I'm going to pass that out, and that's going to be the ID of the account we've just created. So that's going to set my entity reference. And then finally, the note text attribute of the note. Here's a description of the text file creation, like so. So lastly, I need to get an instance to the organization service, and I need to do this because, again, we need to get a reference to the organization service, which is created from the organization service factory. Now, once we create that organization service instance, like so, we simply need to call service.create and pass in the note. So that should be all we need to do for code right now. Go ahead and build it. It looks good. Okay, so let's fire up the plugin registration tool, which is in the SDK as well under tools. Let's create a new connection, and I'm going to make sure my username and password are configured, which they are. Click login. So let's register a new assembly, and I'm going to point to the project that we just created, which is on my desktop. It's called plugins. Drill down into the debug, and I'm going to add the DLL there and register the plugin. So after registering the plugin, the next thing we need to do is register the new step. The message is going to be called create, because we're going to execute this on the create message of the account entity, which is the primary entity. It's post-operation synchronous and registering the new step. So that's all we need to do in the plugin registration tool. So now when we fire up CRM, I'm going to add a new account. I'm going to call this one account 2 with note attachment. Okay, go ahead and click save. So this time what I'm expecting to see is the account created, and I'm also expecting to see a note with a text file attachment. So if I view this record and now click on the notes tab, and there it is, example note with text file attachment, and there's the description there, and there is the text file. If I click on that, I'm going to go ahead and save it and then open it, and there is the text file. This is some sample text that is in this file, and that's how you do that. Pretty cool stuff, huh? Okay, so lastly, I'm just going to go back into the plugin registration tool, and I'm simply going to disable this step. And that's pretty quick and easy. So now when I try and do this again, you would expect that the account is created, and this time, because it's disabled, the plugin will not fire and there will not be any note that's attached to that new account. So if I create an account and then click notes, there's nothing there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.